Welcome everyone to my official winter weather forecast for 2023 to 2024. This video will have some good news and some bad news, so I'm going to break it all down step by step so everyone in the United States, even Hawaii and Alaska, know what to expect. I'm excited to present this information, so let's dive right into the first part of the video. In all of my long-range weather forecasts, I always like to spend some time talking about the El Niño Southern Oscillation. We aren't going into detail like I have in my preliminary outlooks, so for this video, I'm going to show you an update on how El Niño is progressing. These are the latest sea surface temperature anomalies, and as you can see, El Niño is developing well across the equatorial Pacific. We have those warmer than normal ocean waters stretching from South America westward along the equator all the way towards Oceania. If we zoom in even closer, sea surface temperatures are between 2 and 3 degrees Celsius above the historical average in the darker red and brown shades. The official forecast from the Climate Prediction Center shows a 95 to 100% chance of El Niño persisting throughout the winter, before probabilities gradually start to decrease by the spring and summer of 2024. Now I would like to show you what the weather models are predicting in regards to precipitation. When looking at these weather models, we're going to compare and contrast and look for similarities which can help us see what is most likely to occur. Right off the bat, we're already seeing significant agreement among all three of these models, with weather anomalies showing up across California and the East Coast, with the strongest signal across the Southeast. All three of these models also hint towards drier than normal weather across the Northwest US. One main difference which I think is worth noting is that the CFS model is also showing drier anomalies across much of the Ohio Valley and Northeast. I do think that's going to be true, especially for the Ohio Valley, but not as much for the Northeast. For temperatures, all of these models are really leaning towards warmer temperatures for many of us. The CFS is the most exaggerated model, which shows warmer temperatures across the entire United States. There will be warmer than normal temperatures in some portions of the country during the winter, but I personally think that that will be the case primarily across the northern half of the US as well as the west. For this reason, I think that the CANSIPS model is the most realistic one. Let's take a look at the Climate Prediction Center's latest update. We can see some pretty good consensus between the CPC and the weather models with this forecast, especially for the precipitation outlook. Wetter than normal weather is favored across much of the southern US as well as parts of the East Coast. Places like the desert Southwest will probably also see some wet weather, but they are currently in the equal chances zone. Wetter than normal weather is even more likely in California and Nevada, as well as Texas and Oklahoma into the southeast. That dark green shade from southeast Louisiana into Florida is where wetter than normal conditions are very likely, with almost a certainty of seeing more precipitation than usual. Less precipitation than normal is favored across parts of the north, particularly for Montana, Idaho, North Dakota, Michigan, and portions of Ohio into Indiana. Once again, this is very typical for an El Niño. For Alaska, precipitation looks to remain generally average for much of the state, with the potential for above normal precipitation in northern Alaska. For Hawaii, we're unfortunately expecting much drier than normal weather to persist as we head through the winter season, which is typical for an El Niño. For temperatures, widespread warmer than normal weather is very likely across much of the northern US, with the highest likelihood across New England and the Northwest. We do have a region across the south-central part of the country shaded in gray, which is quite rare to see from the Climate Prediction Center. This signifies where temperatures are likely to be near normal, so not necessarily warmer or colder than usual. In Alaska, temperatures look to remain well above average. Hawaii can also expect some warmer than normal weather. If we look at the drought outlook from October 17th, we see where we have some of the biggest problems. Some of the worst drought is currently ongoing across the Northwest, the Central Plains into the upper Midwest, and of course across New Mexico into Dixie Alley. The drought conditions can also be followed up the Mississippi River, which has caused water levels to be below normal. Hawaii is also enduring some significant drought conditions, which contributed to those major wildfires last summer, and unfortunately we expect that drought to continue into next year. Now, with this information in mind, it's time to take a look at my official predictions for the United States. Please enjoy the second chapter of the video. More precipitation than normal is possible all across the light green, which covers a pretty good portion of the southern U.S. I also expect to see some wetter than normal conditions in northern Alaska, which is in line with the Climate Prediction Center's outlook. The darker green shade, which extends from the west coast all the way up the east coast, represents where wetter than normal conditions will be likely, and this is due to a very active jet stream we are expecting this winter. Lastly, the darkest green shades include the southeast U.S. from Louisiana into southeast Virginia, as well as a pretty big portion of California. Those are the regions which I personally expect will see the most precipitation compared to a normal winter. Now, on the other hand, drier than normal weather will be a possibility in the tan shade, covering much of the northern U.S. This next color, which covers parts of the interior northwest as well as much of Michigan, is where I think drier than average conditions will be most likely this winter. For Hawaii, much drier than normal conditions are favored. As far as temperatures go, I'm expecting widespread above normal temperatures across much of the west into the northern U.S. The slightly darker orange represents where I believe warmer than normal temperatures will be even more likely, which of course includes the entirety of the northern tier of the country. The dark red represents where the temperatures are very likely going to be above normal for the winter season. One important thing to note is that temperatures will not be well above normal for every single day of the winter, so that doesn't mean that we shouldn't expect any Arctic invasions. I do think that there will be some significant blasts of cold air at times, but due to the strong El Niño influence, significant cold air outbreaks may be fewer and farther in between, therefore leading me to believe that temperatures will be warmer than normal for much of the winter. Now, in the blue shade, I think cooler than normal weather is going to be a possibility, and this can be attributed to a very active storm track which will help keep those temperatures lower than normal. And for Alaska, I think temperatures will be warmer than normal for the entire state, especially the southern half, and that's in line with the Climate Prediction Center's forecast as well. For Hawaii, I expect warmer than normal temperatures for much of the winter season. Due to the amplified storm track across the south, lots of rain and sometimes snow can be expected, but those storms can also be severe weather producers. I have adjusted my severe weather forecast since my last update, so here it is. Across the red shades, severe weather will be possible this winter. One is over a portion of the southwest, and the other extends from the southern plains into the southeast. The darker red represents where severe weather will be likely. Last year, during California's major barrage of storms, some of these storms produced some severe weather, including isolated tornadoes. This leads me to believe that some of these storms will be capable of severe weather once again in California this winter, especially with the more potent systems. Obviously, when these systems get through the west and gain access to the moist and warm Gulf air across the south central and southeast U.S., another area of high severe weather activity appears possible from Texas into South Carolina. Last but not least, I think that the highest concentration of severe weather will be from eastern Texas down into southern Georgia. I think that we will have a common storm track bringing the warm side of the storm along the Gulf Coast, which could cause some significant outbreaks of storms from Texas all the way to Florida. Next up, let's just take a quick look at my snowfall outlook, which I presented in my snowfall forecast for this winter. Basically, anywhere in the brown has a chance at seeing slightly less snow than normal, with much less snow than usual likely in the darker brown. That coincides with the areas expecting the biggest deficit in precipitation, as well as higher than normal temperatures. Across the south, particularly the darker blue shades, much more snowfall is expected. This includes the Sierra Nevada mountains, the mountainous terrain of the Four Corner states into the southern high plains, and a portion of the southern Appalachian Mountains into the mid-Atlantic. We've now reached the very last portion of today's video, my updated and all-new official winter outlook for all 50 U.S. states. For the Pacific Northwest, precipitation looks to remain around average. I do think there will be a few periods of increased activity, so this region should be prepared for heavy rain and mountain snow at times. Northwest can expect much warmer than normal temperatures, with significantly less total snowfall, especially in the mountains. Moving down towards California, we see a few different colors. The green represents above normal precipitation with a greater chance of more precipitation and even a risk of severe weather in the dark green across much of central California. The blue shade across the Sierra Nevada mountains represents much more snow than usual, with several major snowfall events likely in those mountains. Much of the southwest is in this blue shade, which represents increased mountain snowfall. The lower elevations in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and southwest Texas are in this light green, which means cool and occasionally wet weather expected. The central and southern high plains can expect much more snow than usual. The northern plains in the orange, much above average temperatures are likely, with less snow expected. While temperatures may be warmer than normal overall, I would still be on the lookout for a couple of significant Arctic invasions, especially in January and February. We have a yellow shade across a portion of the Midwest, which represents the near average zone. Temperatures will probably shift between colder and warmer than normal, with periods of stormier weather alternating with drier weather. The Great Lakes region is surrounded by this orange shade, which represents much warmer and drier conditions likely, with a very significant deficit in snowfall. The white region from Oklahoma to West Virginia can expect a few snowstorms. The narrow pink shade will probably be the winter battle zone, or where the rain-snow line may fall with a lot of snowstorms. From North Texas into the Carolinas, we may see some systems bring ice while others bring snow. The red shade along the Gulf Coast into the coastal Carolinas represents well above normal precipitation, drought improvement or complete removal, and a high severe weather and flood risk, so we'll definitely have to keep a close eye on that area. The mid-Atlantic into western North Carolina can expect an exceptionally snowy winter, with the El Niño influence likely to cause some big snowfall events. This then brings us to the final portion of the lower 48, the Northeast. Here I expect to see some nor'easters this winter, capable of very heavy snow. Last but not least, we have Alaska and Hawaii. Alaska can expect a warmer than normal winter for the entire state, with warmer and also wetter conditions in the north. Hawaii can also expect warmer than average winter temperatures with much drier weather likely to persist, leading to ongoing drought. That will conclude my official winter forecast for 2023 to 2024. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them down below. Please also consider helping support the video by giving it a like or even sharing it with someone who may find it useful or entertaining. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next update.